So we have to make a chuckle here because the bomb that was launched by the Atlantic magazine aimed at Trump has exploded in their face. I told you earlier not to freak out about all this, and I speak from experience. I know the Atlantic quite well. When my first book, Illiberal Education, came out, I published a massive excerpt in the Atlantic. The Atlantic helped to launch my career. But it was a real magazine then. It's not a real magazine anymore. I'll explain this in a minute. But let's turn to the substance of the allegation. It's basically blown up for a simple reason. On the one side, you've got these anonymous sources. The four anonymous sources uncovered by the Atlantic, and then some additional anonymous sources, probably including the four, and one new guy who says, well, Trump could have said it. Not that he did say it, but he could have said it. This is to Jennifer Griffin of Fox News. So that's on one side. That's the evidence, if you will, for the prosecution. The evidence for the defense is hostile witnesses. John Bolton.
I didn't hear either of those comments or anything even resembling them. I was there at the point in time that morning when it was decided that he would not go to An Marne Cemetery. He decided not to do it because of John Kelly's recommendation. It was entirely a weather-related decision, and I thought the proper thing to do.
General Kelly, people who actually have an animus against Trump have every reason to try to, in a sense, pull Trump down. Trump has said some nasty things about them, and yet one may say that honor compels them to tell the truth. They refuse to credit the allegation. In fact, they factually dispute it. Bolton says it never happened. Kelly, through an aide, says no. Trump did not say that. And the Atlantic itself has now admitted that the whole business about Trump not visiting the cemetery was probably due to bad weather. So what's going on here? Well, part of what's going on, and this is also a lesson for Trump, he should be a little careful about strafing people New York style in the Washington orbit. Why? Because this is not a business. This is politics, and these people can come back to bite you. It's the old lesson that comes from Machiavelli: never kick a man when he's down. He might get up. In other words, he might have every reason to want to strike back if he can. It is to both General Kelly and Bolton's credit that they chose honor over lies. They could easily have colluded with the left. They could have gone for the CNN contract, all the plaudits, the college presidencies that the cultural left has to offer. But they would not sell Trump out. Not for whales, if I can use the analogy from A Man for All Seasons, not even for CNN. Now, a final point about The Atlantic. These magazines aren't real magazines anymore. Why? Because they have leftist overlords with big bucks who own them. The Washington Post is owned by Bezos. The Atlantic is owned by Steve Jobs' widow. This is someone who's donated heavily to the Biden campaign. These used to be independent magazines, but now the donors call up and go, hey, listen, I got one for you from the Biden campaign. What they want to do is to try to suppress the mail-in military vote for Trump. We've got some sources who will go off the record or on the record, but without giving their name, and they will spill the beans. So the Atlantic here is a pawn. It's not just that it's leftist, it is actually part of a team, the opposing team. And so now when we hear these magazines, when we see what they put out, we've got to realize this is basically like getting something from the DNC. We should treat it with the same appropriate scorn because that's probably its original source.